Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature, picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels too. Whether you're an adult reading to your inner child or connecting the young readers in your lives with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. Each week, we'll talk to a different children's literature author and discuss their books, their hopes and dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back for another weekly conversation with a children's literature author, or two, as in the case of this week. Today, I'm talking with Shannon and Dean Hale, authors of the popular and well-loved early chapter book series, The Princess in Black. They're celebrating the 10th year of their series and their newest release, The Princess in Black Kitty Catastrophe. They're here today to talk about their newest book, their longtime collaboration, and how their book has impacted readers everywhere. Shannon and Dean, welcome to the KidLit Love podcast. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. As I said before we hit record, I am a fan. I am a fan because of the young readers that I used to teach, for my own children who read The Princess in Black, and now for all of the big kids, the big teachers that I share your books with in my children's literature courses. So I am excited to chat with you today. And I would love to rewind 10 years. Let's go back in time, 10 years ago. Tell me about how The Princess in Black originally got started.
Well, for that, we have to go back 14 years.
Okay.
It's 10 years since the first one was published, but of course, the story goes back farther in time. We have a daughter who was 4 at the time, and her name is Maggie, but her full name is Magnolia. And she was wearing a butterfly skirt and pointing to the different colors on it. And she said, "Mama, pink is a girl color, and purple is a girl color, and yellow is a girl color, but not black." And I was really taken aback because I had not said anything of such gendering ideas, let alone about colors. It was very silly. I didn't know where she'd gotten it. And I said, "Of course, girls can wear black." And she said, "Mama, princesses don't wear black." And her little, preschool brain had absorbed something that I had never noticed, that she'd never seen a princess wearing black. So just saying The Princess in Black sounded like a superhero. Immediately, I'm thinking of like Zorro. And when Dean came home from work, I was a full-time caregiver at home and writing, and he was working outside the home at that time. And I told him The Princess in Black, and we were both just so excited about the concept. And also at that age, with a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and we had twin babies.
Oof.
Was really feeling a lack of a certain kind of book that bridged between early readers and chapter books. I was having a hard time finding books that I could read at the same time to my 7-year-old and 3-year-old. And as my kids got older, even more so with like my 9-year-old and 5-year-old and 2-year-olds, etc. And so we really designed Princess in Black to be that bridge between those two kinds of books.
As an educator, I can really appreciate that bridge because all kids want to do is read their first chapter book. It is a huge milestone in our reading life. And when you can get a book that allows them to do that, but still provides that picture support they need and has that wonderfully engaging story, like when you see their face lit up because of what they have read in terms of the format, let alone the wonderfulness inside, there's just something special, I think, about this particular genre that just does everybody's reading heart a lot of good. So
Yes, exactly, Stephanie.
Yes.
And it was funny how we had to convince people of that,
Yeah.
but teachers knew it.
Yes.
Like, a lot of people rejected it. A lot of publishers didn't think there was a market for it. They wanted us to make it a lot longer or a lot
Or shorter.
shorter.
Yeah.
But I had met a lot of, especially first and second graders, who were the same thing. They were like, I have to read a chapter book because I want to feel grown up. But the chapter books were too complicated for them at that level. So they try to read it and then they decide, oh, I don't like to read, or I'm a bad reader. And they label themselves that way. And then that label sticks with them as they go forward. And I was like, we need more books that meet kids where they are, which is something Dean and I have always been passionate about. We started doing graphic novels in the early aughts because for that very reason, we met so many kids who were visual learners, and novels were not reaching them, and graphic novels were not yet being published
Yeah.
by children's book publishers. So we're always trying to find where are the books we're missing that are meet readers where they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then they're hooked, right?
Yes.
We can get them. If we can get them, we've got them. And then we can keep going and going. And then they turn into adults like us who can't stop. Can't stop.
That is the super evil agenda.
Yeah.
That we're trying to get kids to
Readers.
to have confidence in their own reading skills and abilities. I can't imagine like a better evil agenda than that.
Yeah.
That's right.
And really for me, I mean, at the time when I was growing up, I struggled with, with some of those dense books, but I loved comic books and I just kept going, with comic books. And so I never was able to define myself as not a reader because I was reading those.
That's right. Oh, so The Princess in Black, when did it become more than just The Princess in Black, but become a series of stories? Is that what you hoped for all along, or was this?
Yeah.
From the very beginning, we wrote the first 4 books before trying to sell it. So it was very much wanting it to be an ongoing series.
Yeah, I had the idea of, that sort of episodic nature, in the old pulp serial way, at least in my brain.
Yes. So like my novels and our graphic novels at that time, we kind of thought of more like big features. But with Princess in Black, we wanted to be like, these are individual episodes of your favorite TV show.
Yes.
Not to say that didn't design them after TV shows, but we wanted those short nuggets of ongoing stories. Because if you can get a kid hooked on a series, they're more likely to keep reading.
Yes.
And then of course, that's really what we wanted. We had just in home, for example, our oldest absorbed books. Is autistic and didn't speak for a long time, but would spell words before talking. And then before kindergarten was already, reading chapter books. And then our second child
Was not that way.
No, it was very, very reluctant.
Yep.
And we got to a point where we were like, we're not going to do these phonic worksheets anymore. I'm so sorry, teachers, but it was just killing her love of reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so with her, we could really see firsthand as well. We need really engaging stories that are just fun, that'll meet her where she is, that aren't too far above her level for her to dive in. And so much of what we've done has been like, what are our kids missing?
Yeah.
What do we need?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other reason that I loved the book so much as well, because in my world, when I worked with kids as an educator, I was a literacy specialist who had the honor of working with the kids who needed me the most. And when you can get a book that makes them feel like a reader, they feel like they're reading a chapter book, yet it has that support that they need with the pictures and the content is exactly what they want to read. But then when you give them another one, and then you give them another one and they realize before they even open the page, I can read this one. I know Princess in Black. I know the general gist of what's going to happen. It's that much more confidence. It's that much more readiness. So when they go to that first page, they expect that book to impact them in some way. They expect it to make sense. They expect it to be wonderful. And that's what I think the gift of a series like this is, because I can just keep giving them and feeding them and feeding them the books one after another.
But we want it to be their comfort zone, right? We also designed it in a very specific way to not be at a particular age.
Mm-hmm.
So I was also meeting a lot of ESL kids who were even like in high school, but the stuff they were being given to read is about a kid losing their first tooth. So there's nothing age specific. different kids. We always ask kids, like, how old do you think the Princess in Black is?
Right.
And they will guess whatever age they are.
Yes.
But there's a time and place for books about kids of a specific age and what they're going through. And we didn't want those to be this. These are just adventure stories.
Yeah.
And so that kids who are a little bit older but are not confident readers don't feel turned off by it. But they are deceptively short. Just for an example, like a Junie B. Jones or Magic Tree House are going to be usually 10 to 15,000 words long and often longer. These are 2,500 words.
Yeah.
But there are still the same number of pages as one of those books. So you've got larger font, you've got lots of full color illustrations by the fabulous Lei Win Pham, and you've got like 9 chapters. So it feels like I'm cruising through this chapter book, but it really, the word count is much lower, so it gives them more confidence. But at the same time, they're not early readers. We use whatever words we want. We want to introduce some big crunchier words. I loved compound words because I think they're easier to parse. And when there are unfamiliar words, larger unfamiliar words, we always are very mindful of using them in a context so they can be understood, or we will repeat them at least 3 times throughout the book to kind of hold their hand through it. So we're thinking about kids, this is not teaching them to learn, but it's helping them think, I can read a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely have educator brains.
or parent brains, right?
We could have a whole conversation about just teaching beginning reading, I think, right now, and the importance of books. I always say, whenever a principal will come to me or will come to the university and say, what's the one thing we can do? Like, what can we do to make sure our kids learn how to read? And, we always say there's 2 things: invest in your teachers and buy a lot of books. And it will happen. It will happen. Oh, I love it. So
And a lot of books is key, isn't it? Because because not every book is right for every kid.
That's
But
right.
there needs to be a book that's, every kid needs some book that's going to be right for them.
Yes.
So the idea of kind of one person deciding, these kind of books are going to be right for everybody is never going to work.
Right.
The best librarians know to buy books that they wouldn't like themselves because they can think of certain kids that's going to reach.
Yeah. That is so true. So true. I always say to my teachers to be like, identify your own reading gap where you don't read into often and just tackle it, because likely your kids are, and they need to see those books in their classroom library too.
And that's something we discovered as parents as well,
Yeah.
that we had books that we loved and we couldn't wait to share with our kids. And happily, we knew enough, smart people in our lives that we didn't get stuck in the rut of thinking, oh, because they don't like these books I'm giving them, that means they don't like books. It made us realize, oh, they just don't like the books that I liked when I was their age. What else is there?
Yeah. And once we, get over that, we can move on. So you talked about the books as being these really wonderful, kind of episodic, really, I want to say like television and movie based, moving quickly through the books. And you've got such a range of topics. We've got the original Princess in Black, where the foundation was laid. We've got the Perfect Princess Party. My favorite actually is the Hungry Bunny Horde. I've got to practice that before I say that. But you've got, mermaids and bath time. How do you decide what wonderful story that's going to just hook students? How do you decide which one comes next? Where does inspiration come? Is that from your kids too?
That's a good question, because we're always pitching ideas, to each other about, something that could happen, Princess in Black and the X. But what comes next, what it is that sort of takes center stage, it changes, because we were working on before the mermaid book, I think we were focusing in a different direction. And then it was Lei Win who said, I just did an event and everybody was talking about mermaids.
Yeah.
So we were like, yeah.
Oh, I love mermaids. Yes, let's go underwater and meet a mermaid princess. So much of it is based in, for us, just what's interesting to kids? What are kids' struggles? Friendships, the idea of monsters is really metaphorical. We take it very literally and be like, here are these monsters and they want to eat the goat. So what are we going to do about it? But whenever you take anything like that, that's not real world, and take it literally, it gives space for a reader to use it as a metaphor. And we often think about the monsters as being like little younger siblings they're not inherently evil, but man, they're frustrating. They get in the way of what you want to do. They cause problems. And so we treat all of them that way. But most of it is just what is delightful to us right now.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's something that I think is, oh, this would be funny. We imagine, like some scenario that really takes, front position.
Our most recent one was the Prince in Pink, which is one that we'd actually had planned since the beginning. Because since the very first Princess in Black book, whenever we went places and talked about Princess in Black, there would always be a kid to ask, is there going to be a Prince in Pink? Because they got the joke. Usually you don't see a princess wearing black. And what color do you not usually you see a prince wearing? Probably pink. And so we always wanted to deliver that because we kept promising kids like in 40 different states across the United States. Yes, we'll do a Prince in Pink.
Yeah.
And it took this long to do it. Ironically, by the time it came out, the tenor of the conversation in the country had changed so much that book became controversial. When we first were coming up with it, never crossed our mind that it would be
this
controversial.
Is just the Princess in Black from a different point of view.
It was just another play on the
Yeah.
same concept and honoring how kids can be multiple things. One of the ideas of Princess in Black is that she's not rejecting the pink dresses and glass slippers and tea parties and saying, those are gross, those are yucky, girly stuff. She likes that stuff. And she also likes putting on the boots and the cape and fighting monsters. And that, of course, also directly comes out of our children.
Right.
And seeing how on a daily basis, what they're interested in, what their favorite color is, what their favorite animal is, when they play imagination games, who do they imagine themselves to be? Constantly changing. And we didn't want to pinhole anybody. So the Princess in Pink was just, I'm sorry, the Prince in Pink was just another kid who was like, I like putting on being the knight in shining armor and battling monsters, but I also like decorating for parties and having fun. And so just the joy of being a kid and getting to explore different sides of yourself is the basis of a lot of these stories.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it, because you have the format thing that we talked about, right? It is a chapter book that kids can handle. It's the same length, but it might not have the same complexity. We kind of check all of those boxes for early readers. But then on the other side, you have a book that still has depth and still has lessons and still has something that a reader can take away, which is we are all not just one thing. And what a concept for a child to learn at an early age. I think lots of adults still need to understand that we are all more than just one thing. So you have both, right? Yes, it is an early reader, it's an early chapter book, but it is full of these rich, deep lessons about the people, about the monsters, about the goats, about, like you said, that can be lifted out from that kind of tangible world and into that bigger world of what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
So how did you, I know it sounds wonderful, like you get to think about delightful, joyful ideas all day and then just play around with them and see which one comes into the book. But your newest one is the Princess in Black Kitty Catastrophe. And I'm curious of how this one came to be.
Well, this was another one in the same way that the Prince in Pink was, lurking in the background, that, there were requests, especially from our own very cat-loving children. They were like, you've got this book that has animals in it. Why is there not a cat in this book?
Yes. It was one that we're always coming up with ideas, and Dean and I will separately, sometimes we come up with stuff together. Sometimes we'll just separately like come up with individual pitches and then pitch them to each other. And the kitten idea was one that I'd had, I mean, probably since, I don't know.
Book 4.
Yeah. Or earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what it ended up being has changed quite a bit. But the concept with this book was, we see kids get labeled as naughty or willful when they cause trouble. But part of our journey as parents and of parents of 4 neurodivergent children is coming to understand that there are no bad kids. And when kids do things that are destructive or cause problems for other people, it's because they don't have the skills yet to do differently. No kid wants to be a problem. No kid wants people to be mad at them. But they really can't express themselves any other way, or they don't have any way. We've done some, for example, occupational therapy with one of our kids, and understanding how the body can get overloaded with sensory or under stimulated and needs some kind of outlet.
Yeah.
And so in this book, we have this kitten who's just causing a lot of trouble. And what he wants, I couldn't remember which end of the cat was for a second.
Yeah.
What he wants is to play.
Yeah.
And the Princess of Black cannot figure that out. And then at the same time, we have a parallel story where we've got a bored monster who they're afraid that the monster's going to eat the goats, but really the monster's bored and trying to engage.
Yes. Yes.
And it allows both of the Princess Black and Duff the goat herder to kind of process and understand when someone acts this way. It's because they have needs not being met, and how can we help them out? And hopefully that will help kids kind of figure out when they're bored, what's going on, and also maybe to have some compassion for kids or younger siblings or anybody else who may be acting like the kitten.
Yeah,
Or
it's easier
parents.
for them to yeah. It's easier, at least I have found, in my experience with kids, when the lessons or the things are happening to the animals, right? There's
Yes.
no defenses, there's no, I don't know what it is, but you can kind of step back and say, oh, okay, yeah, that monster, he's not trying to eat the goats. He's bored, he wants to play. And then they're able to make that connection to their
Yes. Oh, 100%. If that cat had been doing what it was doing, but it was a younger sibling,
right.
like my kids reading it would be outraged. Get that
Yes.
kid out of there. That kid is
Right.
wrecking the Princess in Black's room. But when it's a cat, they're like, oh, poor cat.
That's right. That's right. And even poor monster, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think one of my favorite pages, because the illustrations, oh gosh,
Oh,
they're
amazing.
beautiful. Is when the monster is literally having a tantrum. To see the big monster having the little kid tantrum just is one of my favorite pages, because you can actually see the expression, and the feelings of that monster. How did that collaboration between the two of you? I mean, it's kind of rare, I think, to have such a long-standing collaboration between authors and illustrators, and I'm just wondering how did that pairing happen? And how wonderful that it's still the same pairing, moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, it is really rare to have now 11 and still going this many same author and illustrator on illustrated books. So at first it began with Princess in Black. That was the first time we worked with Lei Wen Pham. And she's so brilliant. And I know her before. We were friends before. We never worked together. And we just felt so lucky to get her.
Oh yeah.
And she does these watercolor paintings. I mean, like 90 watercolor paintings per book. It's a huge amount of work. But since then, I also have worked with Wen. She goes by Wen, with our graphic novel series that are memoirs of my childhood, the Friends series. And then she and I have also done picture book series called Itty Bitty Kitty Corn together. So we've actually, she and I have 3 series in 3 different formats and age groups together. So that is very unusual. I can't think of anybody else who has done that in the same way. And we just adore her so much. Every book we feel lucky that she still wants to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. We would make this forever.
Oh, we'll never get tired of Princess in Black.
Yeah.
No. Well, I don't think readers will either. So you may be celebrating year 10, but there's plenty too that you could keep on going and celebrating too. So for those that are like me, they're educators, they're teachers, I want to make sure that they know that you have some pretty cool stuff on your website. And I've got to tell you, I teach a children's literature class almost every semester. I teach teachers who want to become teachers and literacy teachers. And I think we may have to have a Princess in Black party after seeing that fun party kit that is on your website. So do you want to just tell people where they can find you and what they might be able to find online to celebrate with you at this 10-year mark, and just all the extras that they might find?
That is a great question, and we do not know all of the answers to it. But Candlewick is doing so many great things. So I would definitely go to princessinblack.com, and they're going to just keep updating stuff. They've got lots of free party supplies and activity ideas, and it's going to keep building up from there.
Yeah, there will be, they will show us a thing that we had no idea was coming.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, oh, this is awesome. And the teaching guides and everything that they do is just so great.
Yeah, I love seeing that. I really did get a kick out of the party. I thought, okay, first I can do this with my students, but I can imagine just getting my teacher and library friends and, dressing up and having an adult Princess in Black party to help you
It's not
celebrate.
too hard of a costume to hack, because you just wear
right.
black and put on a tiara and you're ready to go.
Ready to go. That's right. Oh, I love it. Well, I'm so grateful that you came on to talk about Princess in Black. I love hearing the backstory, how it started, what your hopes are for readers. I just feel like kids, adults, all of us are so lucky to have these books to put into their hands for so many reasons. Where can listeners find you, find out more about you, perhaps any social media that you'd like to share, so that they can get in touch if they'd like to learn more?
We're less and less online.
I'm so absent on social media now.
I've
No,
got
that's okay.
Facebook.com,
It's so hard.
and I am on Instagram.
Yeah, no, and I'm still on
We're technically on Twitter, but
formerly known as
yeah.
Twitter, but I barely check it.
Yeah.
I'm on Blue Sky, I guess, but
That seems to be that's where I do miss Twitter for the conversations around KidLit that really used to be there. And I see some of them migrating to Blue Sky and some of them migrating to Threads, but it's just so hard to
yeah.
keep up. It's so hard to keep up. So I will put in the show notes links to wherever you are and want people to find you, and especially to the Princess in Black website, so listeners can check out all of the resources there and see it grow if they continue to check back as well.
That's great.
Congratulations on your 10. I'm honored to be part of your podcast journey as you celebrate the Princess in Black. Always be close to my heart, always share it with readers and teachers, and I look forward to seeing what you create next in the series as well. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, you're welcome. And listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.